Hey y'all, we're late. Like I said, eight-ish. This is you don't realize till you make the commitment, but it's hard to actually stop everything that you're doing sometimes and get in here. But fun, and we're glad to be here. And tonight we have a really special guest. Yes, Carllisa, or as we say, Carllisi from the imagination realm, and she's going to take us through the overview. And then we have Liz. Kerri and Ray are sick. Brand doesn't have internet just yet, so it's just going to be us ladies tonight, which I think is an interesting dynamic. Liz, why don't you introduce yourself, and then Carllisa, you go ahead and introduce yourself. Y'all, all of Carllisa's links are in the description. And then just go straight on into the overview. Our guest has done the overview, which is always fun. Here we go. Liz?
All right. Hey, all. I'm Liz. You can see all my links in the bio or in the description. I'm talk about Game of Thrones a lot on Quora. And you can find me there answering lots of questions, asking.
That's an understatement.
That's an understatement. I've recently, I also have been recently asking questions about basketball, the NBA Finals, and some other topics. But I asked a few Theon questions today, so you can follow me on there and see my answers and that. Also, I write fanfic, so some of you might know me as Castalia Reed. I write a lot of Johnza fanfic, and those links might be there and around. And I have some more stuff I'm working on, so hopefully we'll get some after season 8 future fix going for all of you who like that. And that's, so follow me on Twitter, and I will share those when those are ready to go. That's me. On to the next.
All right, Miss Carllisa.
Hi, everybody. Most of you are following me on Twitter or Facebook or in my Facebook group, The Imagination Realm. I also have a blog. It's www.theimaginationrealm.com, and all my links are in the bio. I primarily was talking about Game of Thrones, but now that it is over, I'm watching other shows and reviewing those. Mostly I post news. I do a weekly news update with just all the shows I'm watching and everything that's going on about those shows. If you aren't a part of the Facebook group already, the links are in the bio. Feel free to join and join the conversation. I think you are on mute.
I was muted. I'm sorry. Yeah, amateur hour here. Okay, I really love Carllisa's group, and I don't just join every single group because notifications make me really nervous. Best thing about the iPhone is being able to turn it off on the side, I swear. Everybody, all I was going to say was just call me Jen. It's too hard to type that other out, or LWD, I guess, but Jen is fine. All right, Carllisa, you want to go ahead and go into y'all? We're introduced to Theon. This chapter is the first time we've ever had POV Theon. We're not introduced to him, but I guess to his thoughts.
Okay. And just quick disclaimer, I did the overview similar to my writing style and when I review episodes. So pardon me if it gets a little bloggy. Okay. Theon is arriving to Pike after 10 years of being a ward of Winterfell. From the Miraham, the ship he arrived on, he noted that the Stark Direwolf banner had not flown above the sea tower, but the Greyjoy Kraken instead. When the captain's daughter asked if it looked as he remembered, he noted it appeared smaller. He stayed in the captain's quarters during the journey and took the captain's daughter to keep him busy during the trip. The purpose of the trip being to deliver an offer as an emissary of Robb Stark. Along the voyage, he critiqued the Miraham, boasted about how he'd received once he arrived, and belittled the captain's daughter, both verbally and in his thoughts. We get some insight to Theon and how he thinks. He has very misogynistic views of women and a high opinion of himself. The captain's daughter offers to go ashore with him, which he gives a brief history lesson on the Iron Islands and their old way prior to a denial of her request, much to her dismay. She now feared that her father would punish her for no longer being a maid, which Theon assures her should be considered an honor. Theon expected a grand arrival and to carry out his plan to a glorious end. The captain announced the Ironborn's heir had arrived, and the crowd at the port had no clue who he was. Theon then thinks he should have worn better clothes. Finally, his uncle Aeron arrives to escort him to Pike, which Theon thinks is not good enough. During their meeting, his uncle questioned if he worshipped the Stark's old gods, in so doing his loyalty to the Stark, to which Theon denies. Aeron responds by baptizing Theon to the drowned god. Theon questions his father's plans for war. Aeron tells him that he shall get his answers when he speaks to his father. Angered, Theon states he's the rightful heir to the Iron Islands as the only living son of Balon. Aeron reminds Theon that his sister Asha lives, further angering Theon that at the thought that his sister, a woman, would be considered heir before him. Theon tells Aeron about Robb Stark's war and the meaning of the comet. Aeron states that the comet is a sign from the drowned god and not a message from northern or other Westerosi gods. As Theon arrives to the castle, his father is still nowhere in sight, and he thought him colder than Ned Stark. He asks more of those he remembers, and there are no familiar faces. He's led to chambers that are dark, damp, dirty, and cold. Theon issues orders to have the room warmed and cleaned along with water to clean himself. He dresses and makes his way to see his father, recalling memories of his childhood all the way. Balon Greyjoy appeared thin and old to Theon. He accuses him of returning to him as a Stark and a messenger of Ned Stark's bidding. Theon informs his father that Ned Stark is dead and he's there with an opportunity. Balon attacks Theon's clothing and says he's dressed like a whore, as his clothing was bought at the gold price rather than the iron. Theon explains that Robb Stark trusts him and thinks him a brother, which angers Balon at the thought of Theon thinking of Stark his brother. Theon explains the plan, that it is his own plan, that Balon would be rewarded as king of the Iron Islands, and Theon the seat of Casterly Rock, at the price of assisting Robb in his war. Balon responds in disgust, and Theon thinks him mad. Balon has his own plan.
Awesome. I think that was very well done, and I like it done bloggy. It was fine to me. It feels like it.
Good job.
Yeah, very good job. And I think you did a really good job of, Theon comes off as so petty.
So petty. He's such a jerk. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, like, just all the wrong things matter to him, basically.
I just remember in the first book, I think it's in the first chapter when we first meet Theon,
oh, I know what you're gonna say.
Is he kicks and Theon kicks the head, and John is whispers he's such a jerk or ass, or I forget what John whispers, but it's yeah.
He also thinks to himself. I think that's when we really when he kicks that dude's head, who's talking about he saw the White Walkers and all that. He kicks his head, and then John thinks about how he really doesn't like Theon and never has and probably never will.
Yeah.
It took me a while to even like Theon.
Me too.
Took about 7 watches to like Theon.
I'm still on the fence about Theon.
I love Theon now.
Oh, you love him now.
I do too. I
love Theon now. It took me a while to realize he's on the fence. He's not a Stark. Well, he wasn't a Stark. He wasn't a Greyjoy, and he was pretty much just coming out of adolescence. So he's in a tough place trying to find his way.
Yeah, that's
right. And I have some notes about that exactly. And I think one of the very first things that we get in the chapter, I think really lets us know that Theon is basically just trying to find his way, like everybody else pretty much in the story that we see growing up. we see John, we see Rob a lot, especially Rob a lot at this point in the books, trying to just find their way. And Theon is certainly no exception. Like a bird struggling to take flight. And I think that is meant to be a bit of a description for Theon.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think there's a lot of like interesting things in this chapter. Like there's this tension of like what he remembers everything being like and what it really is, or what it looks like now as an adult. He kind of has like these childlike memories because he was like, what, 9 or 10, like he was a kid. And
right.
He's always remembering like, oh, it's smaller than I remember it, or his father isn't as tall as he remembers him, or, you know, he's got these like, you know, like a child's awe of how like amazing everything is and all that. But it also
reminds me. I'm sorry, Liz. Go ahead.
Oh, no. So what were you gonna say?
It reminds me of if you've ever visited your elementary school or high school after you've graduated.
Yeah.
What a great analogy.
It just looks like
how little those desks are.
Yeah.
And you know, and everything. And you remember when you're like in first grade and a sixth grader is so big to you?
Right.
Yeah, that's definitely, he remembers everything much grander than it is.
Yeah.
Very romanticized.
Very much.
But this rereading this chapter, it just brings back how I guess, lack for a better word, how douchey Theon appears in the beginning. He's irritating, he's annoying, and this being the first chapter that he's introduced, you get that. Just the way,
oh yeah,
just the expectations that he has of how they're going to receive him, and they're going to be so in awe of their heir coming home, and he's expecting like a parade, pretty much.
It kind of like relates to, I don't want to bring up this, but like how Daenerys kind of thought she was going to get all this, like when she's come, you know, people would tell her like they're going to wave banners for you.
Exactly.
And that's not how it is.
Well, you guys, I was thinking about Theon being very similar to Sansa in the fact that he expects, you know, things to be a certain way. Sansa's more courteous than him, sure. In a false sort of way when she's younger. I feel like she's courteous to everybody because she knows she's supposed to be. But but just like the way they both go through such a horrible experiences and really start to empathize with everyone's situation around them. Like how Sansa says she was kind of a snob to Jon growing up. Well, look at the way Theon is being a snob to this poor girl and her father, and kind of even doing things intentional to be a little bit because he can, just because he can.
Well, I think that's a good point with all the Stark kids kind of go through this, like actually, because Jon is like this too. Like,
right?
Jon,
no, you're right. It's like they all go through it.
And also there's this like tension. I think you kind of bring up what I noticed with how he treated the ship, the captain's daughter. And that is like, there's this tension between the High Lords and like the common people, or more, not, you know, and like a ship captain's probably considered well off in some circles or whatever. But Theon can still kind of do whatever he wants and treat them pretty shitty, and no one says anything. And so there's that tension, right? And I think all the Stark kids have to come to terms with that a little bit in different. Theon's like a little more assholey, but
yeah. So I started with
right. I think they do, because at the beginning of the story, you know, we see them growing up somewhere where they're comfortable, and essentially that is their home.
Yeah, they're the top dogs, you know.
Right. Exactly.
I started with the show and then tried to read the books. And first time reading the books, I thought, whoa, John's really like a little shit in the beginning.
No shit.
And that kind of took me aback a little bit, because I love John and I love him in the show. And the first chapter of his, I just thought, oh man, he's entitled. He was coming off not the same in the books, and it just took me aback a little bit because I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're all a little bit different to me in the books.
I agree. And I wonder if in the order in which you read the material doesn't affect the way, but I change my mind all the time about the characters on every read. I love rereads, and that's why I always like for the guests to do the overview if they feel like they would like to, because everybody has such a, it's just like anything you read, you can get a whole class to write a book report on something. No two will be the same if
Right.
Right.
it's the material and really writes their own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
think,
there's an interesting dynamic of, like you mentioned, Liz, when he's on the ship and he's, being entitled and he's treating the captain's daughter the way he's treating her. But then when he gets ashore and no one knows who he is, it should kind of readjust his thinking,
Yeah.
and it doesn't
Yeah.
quite at first.
no,
So
he's a hard case, man.
yeah.
Go to the chat for a second. Amanda J, living on a prayer, says, looking at our journey as children to adults, need to readjust our expectations from a child to an adult.
Yeah.
We have this belief in the world we have this belief in the world that basically, I guess, whatever you've grown up being told and what society you've grown up, and then you live life and you find out that's not the way things are at all. I agree with that.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Because I know that I'm turning it to this because it's one of my favorite topics, and I'm sorry, y'all. But I read online today in another group that I'm in. I don't think it was Imagination Realm, but it was somebody else posted in a group that I'm a part of that they were doing a rewatch of season 8, and they felt like, and I thought this too, that Daenerys was a little bit surprised at just how warm the Theon Sansa reunion is. Of course, she doesn't know probably all the history, but I'm sure she probably knows as much as she could find out from gossip or whatever. So, and she was kind of surprised in that maybe that reiterated just how alone Daenerys felt.
Yeah,
I can see that, because that was a very warm reunion, but even more so than that, when they spent basically their final night sitting there eating that bowl of stew together. I mean, oh my gosh, it brought a tear to my eye.
Well, yeah, I think exactly. I think it was supposed to be because Theon and Yara pledged to Daenerys. So and when he kind of says that he came north not for Daenerys, but for the Starks and for Sansa, and she just had this conversation with Sansa about the North, and she's already knows Sansa doesn't like her. It's just, it's supposed to, Daenerys really doesn't understand where people's loyalties are, and she
how you get their
loyalty to her. So yeah, I think that was on purpose. I think part of why they showed that with Sansa and Theon was to kind of put the needle into Daenerys a little bit, and
now that you're pointing that out, I believe you're right. I see that. What were you going to say, Carllisa?
I think initially when Daenerys met Theon, he still didn't make a full transition from being Reek back to Theon. So when they met, she said, and what's wrong with you, when Yara said that she would be queen of the Iron Islands. Daenerys looked at Theon and she's like, what's wrong with you? And he's like, I'm not fit to be heir or to be king. And he was still very much in his Reek mode at that time. Then he has the conversation with Jon about him he can be Stark and Greyjoy. And I think that gave him some solace. So the next time she sees Theon, he had already been forgiven by Jon. He had been forgiven by Sansa before that. So he was a little bit more sure of himself, a little bit back to being Theon, and he was comfortable enough to make that open gesture to Sansa in front of her. He didn't, he wasn't holding back. So it was very genuine, and it wasn't like Daenerys had seen him before, where he was still kind of even shaken and
Okay,
intimidated to
I
talk to
think
her.
that's a real good way to put it. I think that's really, really a good way to put it. That like really he was just a shell of himself for quite a bit until really him and Sansa kind of broke the bonds, which again is why they're so close. They kind of broke those, they both felt, I guess, like, well, they were prisoners.
Well, and Sansa brought him back to, at least on the show. I mean, this isn't how this is going to happen in the books at all by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think Sansa and Theon are ever going to like see each other again in the books. Maybe, but maybe. I don't know.
Oh, you don't?
No. Because he's with Painful, like it's a complete, like they separated his storyline. If he survives, I'd have my doubts he's going to make it out of book 6 alive. But I've heard some theories. I don't know if they're right. Maybe he'll see Sansa again. It certainly won't go through what they went through on the show together, because that's Jane Poole.
I always thought is that the book and the show are going to be different, but then you hear people say, well, you know what? This is how I feel about it. George R. R. Martin is going to do what he wants to do.
Right.
Unless it's in a contract somewhere that he can't do something.
Yeah.
That man will do just what he wants to do and nothing else. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and I do think, I think Sansa will go north to the Wall to Jon. Whether she will meet Theon on the way, maybe she will. But I don't know. It doesn't look like it now, but we'll see. It's possible.
I'm sorry, my chat's not keeping up. Like I have no chat, no fresh chat for a long time. I'm sorry.
Oh.
Okay, I want to go off topic for a minute, and y'all can blame me, but here's a question for everybody and everybody in the chat too, because I'm still trying to reconcile shit. Okay, like,
but I do have some more to say about the chapter. But okay, we can go off topic.
I mean, okay, but okay, I gotta go here because I'm okay with it as a TV show, but I'm still trying to reconcile it in my head. Thinks that Bran knew the whole time he was going to be king, and like he was this mastermind. Like, is that what? Am I supposed to be feeling that way? Like,
I said that. You go, Carllisa. Go, Carllisa.
I think that, and I might get a little sci-fi here, but so I think just like butterfly effects or other time travel type of movies, that Bran could not disclose certain things for fear of changing the outcome. Okay. So I think that he knew certain things had to happen. I don't think he knew from the very beginning that he was going to be king, but maybe a recent vision that he would be king. I don't think that he did things pulling strings the whole way. I think that he knew certain people had to be in certain places, and he allowed that to happen. And I think if he said too many things, so if he knew that King's Landing would be destroyed and all those people would die ahead of time, and then he told someone, and then they did something different, then the outcome might have been worse, or he would change the future. So I think that he may have known certain things would have happened, bad or good, and could not interfere with them. And I think he got different pieces along the way. I don't think he knew from the time he got to the cave that, okay, so yeah, I'm going to be the three-eyed raven and I'm going to be king.
Right. Okay. I see what you're saying. I think that's a good explanation for it. So basically what you're saying is you don't think like the whole time he was like, I'm going to be king. He just kind of knew one step at a time what choice to take. And I can see where that makes sense to me too, because it's like a temptation. Like that time he wanted to call out to John when they were at crack
Right.
and he couldn't or he didn't. You know what I mean? Like,
And
Well,
and I think he's learning along the way new pieces to his abilities, and he's reconciling them and adjusting to them.
yeah.
And as he goes along, he may learn a little bit more, and he's also putting things together. So when he got out of the cave the first time and he first got back to Castle Black, and then he got to Winterfell, he really didn't even understand his visions at that point. So I would be in shock if it turns out that he knew at that point that he would be king.
okay,
I
okay.
think he was still lost. I
Thank
think
you,
he was still,
Carllisa. See, I
yeah,
get
he got
that.
like little glimpses and
Well,
didn't know what they meant at the time. It's like, and if you think about like comic book movies or comic books, when someone gets a new power and they don't really know how to control it, and they don't know the full scope of their abilities at the time, and as they learn, then they realize how much control they have, how many things they can see, and what exactly they meant. So he may have, we saw those visions early on, but just like we didn't exactly know what they meant, I don't think he knew at the time either.
yeah.
That makes sense to me.
And also too, you can't like in the scene where he goes back and he sees Ned and the Tower of Joy, he calls out to Ned, but he can't really change. Like Ned can turn and like be like, "Oh, did I hear something?" But he doesn't really like he can't actually like change what's happening. Like so he can affect it, but he can't. So I think maybe he even knows like him trying to change the future would be futile. Like he
Right.
could
Okay. Yeah, like
he'd
there's
almost end up
parameters.
making it happen anyways. So
Right. And then, yeah.
yeah, so there's not
Then
much.
you end up in like a weird time travel paradox that he tries to change something and it would have happened anyway.
Right, he
And
ends up causing it. Him trying to change something ends up causing it to happen, right? Like
yes.
isn't that
Natural Life in the chat agrees with you, Carllisa.
yeah.
In fact, quite a few people agree with the way you just
But I will say this, I do think, Jen, I'm kind of with you too, where I think I'm like, was he masterminding like taking Daenerys out?
Wait a minute, because I almost wish that's the case, honestly. It would make me feel better.
I feel like there's so much that happened that like he got like the Night King fighting and like destroying parts of Daenerys, weakening Daenerys, taking one of her dragons, destroying part of her army, and then they go south, and then Cersei and Euron take out another dragon, and then like so she's really weak and like but she destroys King's Landing, but like at the same time, then she loses John, John's support, and he kills her. Like I feel, well, she was losing John's support from the beginning, from a while, but that was the final straw. So I wonder, like sometimes I do wonder if Bran. I mean, even though I say that is that he can't affect things, but I don't know. Like I do wonder sometimes if he's like pulling. I don't know.
I think about it. Okay. Just put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
so in the chat, Peter Griffith said back, yes, my fave topic. I agree, the imagination realm. Bran didn't know during his first talk with Sansa when he said they were fragments and he needed to see better.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's just he's piecing it together.
Go ahead, Carllisa.
Yeah, I think at that point he's still piecing it together. He doesn't know exactly what he's seeing. And then also I think initially I don't think he could see in the future. I think that was one of and this is, I probably have no basis of proof for this, but he has initially only the ability to see things that happened and things that are currently happening. And I think the even though he had the one vision with the dragon flying over King's Landing, I don't think he was able to see the future beyond that at that point. And I think that's something that happened off camera. and they didn't really show us that that was happening.
Got it. I was wondering about that.
Hey, Milk.
Yeah, because in the first one of the first visions, the dragon was there, and you don't really know if it's like an old um vision of something that happened
Mm,
with Aegon way
yeah.
back when, but then you kind of waiting for it and you're waiting for it. And
Mm,
I think I assumed at least the I'm not really I don't really remember what episode he had the vision, but the wildfire fire blowing up with the sept,
right.
I don't know if that was a vision that happened at the same time or if
No, I can't
it had
remember.
already happened. I
I
can't
can't
remember.
remember either. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
but I feel like the dragon over King's Landing was the only future vision.
Yeah,
If someone in the chat
that's
knows, they can say.
I thought maybe so too.
Okay, Liz. Now, I'm so sorry, everybody. I just had to go there. I just had to
No.
go.
Speaking of future, though, I
Neil,
have this. Really
wait, hold on a second, Liz. Neil, the Westerosi Ninja says, too lazy to type in each person's name. So I'm saying hi to everyone. Okay, Mill. Hey, we understand. That's why I said earlier you can just Jen is my name is Jennifer. Everybody calls me Jen. It's 3 letters. You go with that if you like.
But
But you said you had more to say about the chapter, and if you would get to that, I'm gonna go refill my coffee.
so
I'll hurry.
I was gonna say that, and this is kind of maybe the chat or people can say what they think. There's 2 things. I guess this is about the future, but I guess first I'll make this point is, the whole Iron Islands, the Greyjoys motto is like, we do not sow, which is kind of interesting because later on Theon, we know what happens to Theon, and he's very much about sowing his seeds and his sleeping with lots of women, and but he ends up not being able to do that later on. So I think that's interesting. There's some irony there, but then I wonder about in the future, will the captain's daughter, like, is she getting knocked up by Theon's
Oh
baby?
my gosh,
I thought they would do that in the show, actually. I was hoping for it.
Gotta have a few bastards out there. Like,
that's what I was talking about. Like, I think he thought to himself, he said, I've been with you so many times, you're bound to be pregnant.
Yeah.
She all gets this crazy, he said it in a different way, y'all. But she all gets this crazy look on her face, and she probably hadn't even thought of this because he said she was a virgin when he slept with her.
Yep.
But then he tells her it's not everybody who gets to raise the king's bastard. And like you said, I mean, I'm sure ship captains are middle class or whatever in Westeros, but yeah.
He's
aback.
well, he says it to her father because she's like, you can't. Wait, where is it? Because she's like, you can't leave me with my father. Oh, my father, once you're gone, he'll punish me, my lord. He'll call me names and hit me. And Theon swept his cloak over its pet off its peg and over his shoulders.
Oh, yeah, that's what
fathers are like that. Wow, Theon. He admitted, yeah, no.
But like when I read that, like I was like, well,
like, did Ned Stark?
Whatever, but when I was younger, he was certainly whooped his butt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the folds with
Wait, I gotta get some whipped cream.
Tell him he should be pleased. As many times as I fucked you, you're likely with child. It's not every man who has the honor of raising a king's bastard. She looked at him stupidly, so he left her there. Nice guy, Theon. Nice. Nice. But yeah, so do we think she's knocked up? I don't know.
I guess it just depends on how the book plays out, his storyline. But I thought for sure that would come back in the show. I thought, at least in my fairy tale ending where everyone, still carried on their house names, that he would have a child out there since he couldn't, have new ones.
I hope so as well. I really do. And I hope, and that's what I hope is different about the books and the show. Like these little nuggets we get, you know, some of them I need for it to finish out. You know what I mean?
Worried though. I'm worried a little in the books they won't finish. Like some of them will just be left like we don't know what happened to the captain's daughter because she disappeared. But I hope not. Like I want her to show up on Pike and Asha to be there and to be like, "Yo, here's your brother's kid," and she'd be like, "What? Okay." Like I don't know. Maybe not, but like I find
Yeah,
that
I don't know, you know, but you just can't never tell. But I was just hoping that some of these little opening series that we have that we would get a finish to these.
But and I also think I just think it's very funny too that it's like I didn't realize this till this reread, and it's like the Greyjoy motto is "We do not sew," and like sewing. And Theon can't do that anymore. I don't know. It's kind of funny.
Well, and it's funny that, you know, and his whole identity, half of his identity at least, was based on him being kind of a bit of a womanizer.
Yeah. No, it definitely. I mean, yeah, he was very proud of that.
Now Britney Spears is playing in my head.
The other thing I noticed in this chapter that I kind of was interesting is that Asha's ship is called Black Wind, and Theon makes the connection that her ship is Black Wind and Rob has Grey Wind as his direwolf, and it kind of then in the chapter they're talking about how Asha might be her father's heir, not Theon. And so it kind of goes back to Rob as the heir as well. It like relates them. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
They were.
Anyway, I was going to go to the chat real quick.
Oh.
I think.
Oh, go ahead, Carllisa.
I think it's interesting because Theon has all of these misogynistic type of views for women. And it's a little bit classist also because he mentions to her that, a man had his rock wife and then took salt wives, and she offers to be his salt wife, which puts her in a class beneath him. So I feel as though even though the Ironborn had, like women would, like Asha, for example, she is a ship's captain. She's the heir apparent, and he's taken aback. And I think those beliefs are more mainland Westerosi than Ironborn. So his personality, even though he's trying to appear as the heir to the Iron Islands, he really doesn't have their characteristics.
Yeah.
No, that's true. That's true. Like, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And we know that his mom kind of favored a more Westerosi lifestyle, or a less Ironbornish lifestyle. But yeah, the book does go at length to point out. Well, I mean, it says it that your real wife is Ironborn, just like you, and then you can take as many salt wives as you want.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting too, because there are religions in which, as long as the man, depending on what the man or the woman is, that's what religion the child is. And in some of them, it would be okay to marry a non-believer and for her to stay that way, and some not. So it's kind of interesting to me.
Well, there's some interesting, not in, you don't really get it, I don't think, in the main books, The Song of Ice and Fire, but I think it's World of Ice and Fire, and I think some in Fire and Blood. I forget, but I think it's more in A World of Ice and Fire. As there's a lot of stuff around the Iron Islands and religion, and how I forget which Targaryen it was, but one of the Targaryen kings basically was like, okay, you don't have to have any septs or septons anymore. And so kind of let them go back to just worshiping the drowned god. And so they kicked out all the septons on the Iron Islands. but I can't remember which Targaryen it was that let them do that.
Huh.
It was kind of like there was definitely like tensions, religious tensions between, which we were kind of talking about last week, weren't we, Jen? About fuck, I feel like
religious tensions really all over the book. Truthfully,
yeah. Oh, because we were talking about Davos and Melisandre, and the religious tension there.
Yeah, and
So it connects to this chapter too, with the baptism and the who are your gods and kind of thing.
It does. It does.
I just realized that.
And then at the very beginning of the book, at this chapter, it says, the point of land on which the Greyjoys had raised their fortress had once thrust like a sword into the bowels of the ocean, but the waves had hammered at it day and night until the land broke and shattered. Thousands of years passed. So their power has dwindled.
Right.
Just little by little. And I think that really says it all just right there at the very beginning of the chapter.
Mm. So do you think his uncle, Aaron Dampere, really died? Do you think he really died and came back to life when he drowned? Or did he just like wash up after a shipwreck?
I mean, no, I don't think so. I think they kind of like, I mean, you ever passed out in a pool before?
No. Oh, I didn't live to tell you that.
Take you out. I mean, no, I don't think any of that. I think like, they know how to do CPR and
I'm wondering, like, maybe what if he was, but what if also, because we know Beric Dondarrion, and we know like John is going to be brought back, and Lady Stoneheart in the book.
I know we get a lot of resurrection, but in this case, no.
You don't think so? Patchface. What about Patchface? Because Patchface is all.
I don't know what the hell is up with him. I mean, he ain't right. He's, as we would say in Louisiana, he's throwed off. So honestly, I don't know. I agree. There's something, but as for the Ironborn, no. I think that their baptismal is more of a ritual, and it kind of does it. It grounds you for a moment, and then somebody's right there to get the water out of your lungs. And
yeah, no,
I agree.
Most of them, but like they say that the Dampere, like his uncle though, didn't do it. That like he was in a shipwreck or something, a storm, and then he washed.
I believe it. I believe probably more than anything, he pulled a Davos or something and was on the rocks somewhere, and then it was, well, just drop me here, and I'm gonna roll up,
And then as the years went on,
New York Marathon. Go ahead, Carllisa.
And then as the years went on, the story got bigger and bigger, and by the end of it, yeah.
It become like urban legend,
Yeah.
That's a cool urban legend to have about yourself.
You know what, though? Maybe we're supposed to think that, and so that's what is supposed to guide us when we look, when we gauge everybody else's religion, prophecy, and what is that. There's probably a very reasonable explanation. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not.
No, I wonder that. I think that all the time. I always think there's a reasonable explanation, and people are like, no, it's magic, and I'm like, usually like, I don't know.
And
I think there's a healthy balance
I like to make fun of myself a little bit, so I don't mind. I just learned this year from listening to a true crime podcast I really like about Occam's razor. Like, I understand that as a concept, but I didn't know that had an actual,
name. Yeah.
Yeah, we're always learning. I'm so sorry, Carllisa. Go ahead.
I forgot what I was saying.
Sorry.
No, but I agree with you. I think there's a healthy balance with things that are magic and then those that are not. I think with the Ironborn, it's more of a ritual, and the story just got bigger and became a legend. Just like, in the show when Euron dies, like he kept saying he's the man that killed Jaime Lannister, which he didn't, but it's about the legacy and the story that carries on after.
Yeah, that's a good point. which was what Tywin was certainly always concerned with.
Yes.
So himself.
Yes.
Well, what else do you guys have?
Oh, I had a question about, like, he kind of talks about Ned Stark in this chapter, about being kind of cold, and he kind of says something like, I forget where it is, along the lines of Ned trying to be a father towards him, and then he talks about Catelyn being really distant. But do you think Ned, like I've read some things, people kind of, we all believe like Ned was this really good father and whatever, but sometimes like was maybe Ned kind of not so great of a father towards Theon, like he tried but maybe he couldn't, or he had to keep his distance because Theon was kind of a hostage. Like you get this, like in the first book you never really get this sense that
Theon is a hostage. No, good point. Good
Here
point.
you really
You don't
do.
feel that way.
And you get like, you're like, oh, maybe Ned was distant with him because he might have to kill him.
I mean, you get the feeling that he's more included than Jon. That's the feeling.
Right, in the first book. And Jon's kind of jealous of Theon. I think I always felt Jon was a little jealous of Theon. Well, even Theon kind of mentions it in this chapter that Jon, what does he say? But then he also says Jon was treated better than him. So it's kind of, I don't know.
It's like kids looking at each other and thinking one has it better than the other,
Right.
and not truly understanding the other's plight. And Theon also trying to figure out where he stands, and he's actually in the Iron Islands at this time. So, and he's getting the reception from his uncle and then his father, and they're questioning his loyalties. So he's justifying that, well, the Starks aren't that great in his head at the same time.
Right.
So yeah, he's conflicted and picking out things that may not have gone his way and feeling, well, you know what? They aren't that great. They did capture me. I was a prisoner all this time when I should have been here, and maybe they wouldn't have reacted to me this way now that I'm home 10 years later.
Right.
They interrupted my life, so now I'm playing Greyjoy. So I'm home. Let me show them that I'm not a Stark. He's almost embarrassed when his father points out his clothes, and makes him admit that he bought it with gold versus having taken it. And with Ned's parenting, I think it's kind of a new idea that parents, new in our history, that parents treat children the way that we treat them now. And a few, maybe 2 generations ago, probably not even 2, maybe 1, then they were treated a little bit differently. Children were meant to be seen and not heard, and you don't just dish out all of these hugs and kisses and things like that. You know, you boys have to be tough and strong, and you don't cry, and you don't hug on them, and you don't do all of those kinds of things. Yeah. And I feel like that's how Ned was. It's like, I have to teach them this and I have to teach them that and teach them how to be a man. And we see, like in the beginning, when in the first episode, when they're going to execute Will, and Bran has to go, and Catelyn's all like, well, he can't go yet. Ned's like, well, it's time. It's time for him to see these things. Whereas in our society, he would be too young to see an execution. Right. He wouldn't be allowed to go to see an execution.
All right. Okay. Who's watching Handmaid's Tale?
I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen the new one yet.
I love it. I
love Handmaid's Tale. I haven't seen the new one yet.
All right.
I found the section, but yeah, he kind of like talks about Lord Eddard.
And then right here, he also, it's funny, you know, that like what you said, Carllisa, like Ned was raising him to be that person, but he doesn't see it that way for, I guess, since, you know, he's so conflicted. And, you know, Theon can be a character that can be hard to watch or to read because you're uncomfortable, because I certainly know the feeling he's going through, where you really do feel, where you think more with your heart or whatever, just different times when it, like right here where he says, windy and cold and damp, a miserable, hard place in truth. But my Lord Father once told me that hard places breed hard men, and hard men rule the world. Okay, he's not a hard man though.
Yeah,
Not,
right.
and
He has like the least hard.
but still kind of has this expectation of his father, that his father certainly doesn't feel for him. I don't feel like.
Well, it's like a child's expectation because he never really got to see, like, he still has a romantic, before he gets back to Pike, he has this romanticized view of his father. And then he gets there, and then he's still like automatically like, I have to prove myself to him like he would be if he was like a 13-year-old, because
Right,
he
right.
went through that. He never, and so he's kind of, and he doesn't, yeah, and he had conflicted views about being with the Starks, I guess. Now we're learning, where we never really saw those before, because he always
He
seemed
did never, yeah, he certainly never expressed like he felt that way. So
right.
he starts acting this way, and you realize, like, because I know the first time I'm thinking the whole time, no, Theon is Rob's friend or whatever, because a lot of people didn't treat John up to par, truthfully, but that
Yeah.
our story is based in a society that would have had a very defined class system.
Right.
So, I really never got that feeling, the first time that he was so resentful of it. So then when it crops up just the minute, and you're like, oh my God, Theon is two-faced, bad.
Well, and it's, like, you start to think too, Catelyn tells Rob, don't send him. She's like, what are you doing?
No uncertain terms.
And she's just like, this is a bad idea. And Rob just doesn't listen to her and like does,
Caitlin.
because
What
I
do you
think,
Carllisa?
Say that again.
What do you think about that? Like, Rob thought the whole time Theon was his friend, and I really, even though he was smug, because remember, we don't see this really, really crude side of him till he's on the way back home. He never acts quite this bad around Rob or whatever. So when Theon flipped on Rob just pretty fast, actually, like,
yeah,
I don't think that
and the fact
Theon,
that Caitlin was like, do not trust him. Do not trust a Greyjoy.
and I think that Catelyn was based, her telling Rob not to send him was based on having been an adult and experienced patterns of behavior, and
right.
kind of having a little bit more foresight in how this would turn out. But I don't believe that Theon intended on flipping on Rob.
I don't either. I don't think he went there with the intention.
Yeah. And it's based on not being received the way he thought he would be received. He thought he was bringing them this great plan that he came up with on his own, and they were going to thank him for it. His dad was going to thank him for this, and this was a great idea. And look, I'm getting you a crown, and I'm going to have Casterly Rock. And look at this great thing I did. And his father just shot it down.
To himself. He internally says to himself, I've accomplished what even you had failed to do, thinking about his father.
Right.
Yeah. So he thought he was doing this great thing. And then when he got that slap in the face, he automatically started thinking, okay, well, my father is not responding to me the way that I thought he would respond to me. And now I have to do something to make him respond that way to me. I have to prove myself to him now. Yeah. So let me get my Greyjoy characteristics out, and we're going to betray them, and we're going to go with the dad's plan. I mean, we don't get to that part in this chapter, but he has to switch in his mind. He has to switch at that point.
Well, because too, like, he didn't really have a choice, because once he was there, like, he's there, and like before, he was kept with the Starks as like assurance of Balon Greyjoy's good behavior. So Balon Greyjoy wasn't going to do anything supposedly as long as they had Theon. And now Theon's back home, so Balon Greyjoy can do whatever he wants. And like he was probably going to do it anyways, even if Theon didn't come back home. But even if Theon would have told his father to be like, well, fuck you, I'm going to go back to the Starks, like, and tell them that you're not helping us or whatever, I don't think he would have been allowed to go back. He would have
agreed.
That's a good point.
Like, he really didn't have a choice. Like,
Yeah.
well,
Living on a prayer, Amanda in the chat brings up what I think is a really good point, because a lot of people are like this, and it's not necessarily a bad thing.
yeah.
It hurts yourself more than other people, I believe. Theon is a people pleaser. He is like the wind, he just blows. That's a bit harsh on him, but now I think that's a bit harsh on him, because you see all these times where he really would think about stopping what he was doing. But you're right. Whenever he started down his path, he felt he couldn't stop. And he even said this. Him and Sansa even had a conversation about this, and she kind of turned him around, and that's why they're so close. Anything else, ladies?
Somebody's asking about the drowned god in the.
I saw the question. Like, I don't feel like I'm qualified enough to explain the drowned god to you, except for to say, in my opinion, you're a god. You can believe in it.
Should I read what the wiki said? Oh, so the wiki says the drowned god, also known as he who dwells beneath the waves, is a sea deity worshipped by the Ironborn of the Iron Islands in Westeros. The religion of the drowned god is old, dating back to before the Andal invasion. So before the Andals came and like the Veil, they brought the Seven, the religion of the Seven, and the attempts of the Andal invaders to supplant it with the Seven all failed. The drowned god religion supports the Iron Men's naval pirate culture.
Right.
So basically, and then there's a lot more, and then they have priests and the drowned men.
For the story, like, we're shown that one god is probably as powerful as the next.
And there are no temples. The Ironborn believe the drowned god gives every man a gift as something which he excels. He helps bold men, but not cowards. And the children of a thrall. So a thrall is like a slave, or like people that the Ironborn capture and bring to work for them, are born free as long as they are given to the drowned god.
Okay, that's another thing that's interesting. In their old culture, they had slaves.
Right. Which is crazy because, well, anyways.
Because remember, you guys, he goes through a long narration about, an Ironborn man will sit and drink his ale at night and argue with you what's worse, trying to grow crops on this rocky island, trying to maybe fish or mine. Miners have it the worst. That Ironborn are meant to be warriors. And so this is going to this old way of thinking, going back to this old way of thinking.
This is interesting. This is what we were talking about earlier with the baptism. The priests of the drowned god know how to drown a man and then bring him back to life using CPR, which is called the kiss of life, which the kiss of life is what Beric Dondarrion gives to Lady Stoneheart, or it's Catelyn Stark. This is done as part of the rites of the god, consecrating the drowned person to him. Not all men are successfully revived, however. The priest or one of his acolytes uses CPR on the drowned man. Other acolytes might pray around them. It is custom to give a newborn child to the drowned god shortly following his birth. Some priests believe that this should be done in a similar manner, but more frequently the child is simply dipped into a tub of seawater, scarcely wetting the infant's head. So there you go.
I think the Ironborn are a lot like Vikings.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure what god that would equate to in Norse mythology, but I'd be surprised if there wasn't one that was a lot like the drowned god in Norse mythology.
Right. I'm sure, yeah. I wonder if it says there's anything. History. Wow, this is very in-depth on this page. If you guys
I know. That's the great thing about our fandom. There's plenty of info out there.
Yeah.
And I hope it continues. Okay, here's a question for you guys and for the chat. Do you guys feel like the fandom has slowed down any since the end of the show?
Well, it picked up right before the show. I mean, I just noticed on some of my stuff, like it picked up a lot right before the show and leading up to season 8, and then it's like dropped off. That's normal. I feel like that's kind of natural. But then also, like I know for some parts of the fandom, like in the weeks or two after, there's been so many like John's fix and like fix it. Like season 8 fix and like future fix of like after season 8 what happens, man, all kinds of stuff. So that part of the fandom is kind of like been busy.
Who thinks
I'm still getting a whole lot of notifications, and work's changed a little bit, so I haven't been online as much, but I'm still getting a lot of notifications and videos coming out. So I don't know necessarily that it's slowed down.
so far so good as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if there's plenty of stuff out there to participate in, if I have the time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, excuse me, I'm coughing. Yeah, no, there's a lot out there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. I had walked away to dump my coffee, but
I'm writing some fix now. Just wait.
all right, cool.
Nice buddy.
What you would give us a little, you know, like a one line of 1 or 2 lines about what you're working on, so we can just
the fic. Well,
yeah.
I had started this couple, like a sort of some short stories around. Obviously, it's John and Sansa, and how to say it, kind of dealing with like their very wolf nature. And in this one, I'm actually working on one. I'm very interested in Sansa's outfits in season 8 because she was basically wearing like kinky bondage gear. Never had consensual sex on the show, and I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm writing a fic around some aspect of her very kinky clothing.
Oh, cool. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, so we'll see.
I have to check that
And
out.
you know, John likes it, so.
Where is your stuff, Liz?
I'm on AO3 and on Wattpad, so I can put some links in. I think of the links in the description.
Y'all.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's got a bunch in there. I think she has the most.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So Wattpad.
She has the most stuff.
Yeah. So Wattpad, but I also am on AO3, Archive of Our Own. If you prefer to read on there, I can give you those, either one. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading some of that. Maybe that'll help me like Sansa. It's been a long struggle.
Oh, wait, I love this. Wait, hold up. I love this. You don't really care for Sansa.
I don't. I've tried. Like I said, it took me 7 rewatches to like Theon. And
Right.
by the 10th, 11th rewatch, I just can't deal with Sansa.
You know, you're not the only person who feels that way. So
and Arya is my absolute favorite, and John was my second favorite, but Sansa just irritates me a lot. So perhaps in Liz's fanfic, I could.
I don't think she's in my fix, and I have like I think her relationship with Arya is interesting, and I think sometimes the author's kind of guilty of this too, the way he presents the two characters and in opposition. It's kind of like, because the first time we see Sansa is through Arya's eyes, and they're having problems for a variety of reasons.
Is that the first time we see in the sewing circle, or no?
Yeah, it's the sewing circle.
Okay.
Yeah. And so like, and Arya is being treated badly. That's not okay. But I think there's just the way it's presented, like you see it. Like if you would have maybe seen it from Sansa first, you might have a different perspective of the whole relationship. Like I feel like maybe. And Sansa was originally created by George R. R. Martin. Like her original purpose was because like the Stark kids were getting along too well, and they needed like a character that added a little bit of tension in their sibling relationships.
And that's how, that's what I got.
And then she grew from there, and she grew, and like from there,
Like
you know,
I all of her stuff with Joffrey treated her horribly. Ramsay was an absolute bastard. And all of the acts themselves are hideous and horrendous. But still Sansa's personality I can't. The things,
so in circle.
yeah. The actual things, the actions that are done to her are horrendous, and I hate them. But her as a person, I just don't identify with, and a lot of the things that she does, even down to season 8, just irritated me so bad. I think my favorite Sansa episode or scene was her telling Edmure to sit down in season 8. That was it for me. That was my favorite Sansa scene in 8 seasons.
That's fair. That's fair.
Someone needed to tell Edmure to sit down. Yeah, no, I mean, I can see how like, some people just, and like there's characters that I don't like. Daenerys annoys the shit out of me. Like I'm not a Daenerys fan. And Tyrion, I'm not a Tyrion fan, and people get really shocked at that. So like if some characters just aren't your thing,
it's totally understandable.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Like you're not gonna, I think that's what's interesting, is that you're not gonna like every character.
Right.
And you know what, Carllisa, at this point, sometimes we always ask guests on the channel, if you had to put your personality together using different personalities from the show, do that for us. Like if you're Arya / we know you're not Sansa. But I've said before, I'm a little bit, I think I always say that I'm probably a little Lannister, a little bit Stark, and a little bit Sam Tarly.
So probably, let's say 65-70% Arya, maybe 20 Sam, and then a little bit of Missandei.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
I don't know what I am.
Natural Life goes, what?
Interesting. I'm like, I don't know. Well, I'm very Sansa-ish, but I mean, I like Melisandre a lot, but I don't think I'm like her at all, but I like her a lot. I just think she's nutty. I really appreciate that about her. She's just, I appreciate her. I don't know. And and a lot of people don't, but I like Catelyn. I don't know. I feel for Catelyn a lot. And I respect what she's trying to do. Even though she's not always perfect at all. She makes a lot of mistakes, but I don't know. I respect her hustle. I guess that's what you call it. I don't know. She works hard to like try to, guide people and make things happen, and no one listens to her. And Rob should have listened to his mom more. And Theon wouldn't be in. We wouldn't have had this Theon chapter if Rob would have listened to her.
Right. Except Shayna's here. Hey, he says Kat gets a bad rap in Clash. He feels like so.
Yeah, she gets a bad rap in fandom, but
Girl says I like Kat, but she needs to make good with John. Yeah, Shelly.
Yeah,
that's exactly really how I feel with Kat. Like not even her. I can understand her not wanting her children to be displaced. I can completely understand. And I can completely understand. Honestly, I know this is shitty, but back in those days, it would have been offensive to Cersei if she'd have, unless they'd have full on adopted him, like she talked about when she's talking to Carllisa in the show.
Yeah.
To see
Man,
Cersei's a petty person, that's something that would have, offended her. I get that, but like just not treating him very decent like the rest of the time. Like when he clearly is a good brother and, usually does
Yeah.
the right thing. So I agree.
I think so. I
man,
agree with that. I agree with
I
that.
that's my second least favorite character.
I know people don't like Helen.
Oh,
I'm gonna read. Wait, I
Catelyn
gotta
is
read Marcella's
horrendous.
comments because she said that's the comment of mine you read. Man, I need to do better. You made me feel bad.
I
Let me see. So let me go back and see. You saying Missandei, man, she is dull. Um,
I
I
I
don't know who you are, but I agree. Danny is annoying as shit.
thank you.
Someone pass the wine. I got some red over here.
Seriously.
Over
Yeah.
there across the pond. Hey,
Danny
man.
just man. It's Daenerys in the first book, she's all right. But after that, I'm just like,
Yeah, at first I really enjoyed the Daenerys storyline. Seriously, like Karth and all that. It started to go downhill, I guess, the whole Marine thing, I guess.
I think I have a whole theory about her, but we don't have time to get into it. And
We don't.
I think it's her character. It's a bit like Bran, in that they both kind of break the story in a way, like because she ends up with so much power by having these dragons, so that whenever she's she overtakes. Where Bran too, like in the story, you're like you sit there and you're like everything that's happened. Why aren't people talking to you? It kind of like you, and it's the same with Daenerys. It's like Daenerys, you could just have all the power because you have these dragons, and so there's yeah, they kind of, and I think as you get farther in the story, they kind of both those characters can be kind of frustrating. I don't know. I find and I like Bran. I mean, there's times when I like both of the characters, and there's chapters in the first book that I really like of both of them.
Peter Griffin says, John St. Baptiste changed my view of Danny. I didn't realize how many times I was said in her chapters.
Mm.
So
Yes.
Danny started out really good for me, and most of this is show based. She started out really good for me, and then around season 4 or 5, it starts to go down. Yeah, it starts to go down a little bit. But I think with Danny, it took me a while. It took me a couple of watches, but the final 2 episodes, I was, this is going to come off bad, but I was okay with how things turned out. I understood how things turned out, because just like it took a while to understand Theon and not think of him as just an idiot, with Danny, I can see the story from her view, and from her perspective, they all start out very young, and she has this romanticized view of how things are going to be received when she gets home. And then she'd been by herself for a while. I mean, she's had her advisors, but no real friends. I mean, Missandei is her friend, but she's still not on the same level as her. She's still very much treated as a worker. And so she doesn't have any real friends to really open her eyes. I mean, Jorah just agreed with everything she said. So Sir Barristan was really good, but then he was gone. And she came into this place, and they didn't shout Misa Misa like they did in other places that she'd been. And it took her aback. And the only person that she had was John. And then now we have this new dynamic where they're not off being together alone and having both sex. They're now in his real life, and he has these sisters that don't care for her. They're pulling his dedication towards her. So none of the things that she thought was going to happen is happening. She left Dario saying that she was going to come back and have to marry someone. And you would have thought that she was going to, immediately marry John. And I don't know if that was a show failure or she just didn't want to do that anymore. So
No,
now,
John wasn't gonna marry her, but sorry.
right. But so now she's in this place,
Yes.
and none of the things that she thought was going to happen is happening. Her quote unquote children are dying left and right, and half of her army is gone, and they're not throwing flowers in the street as she walks. And so, in order for her to get this world that she wants, she has to wipe out the old world and killing everybody in doing so and rebuild this world that she thinks is going to be better. It's very jaded, but that's that's how she's looking at this.
Oh yeah.
And that last conversation with her and John, and she has a smile on her face. It's clear, like she's like, what? What did I do? What did I do wrong? This is perfect. We fixed it. She doesn't see it the way everybody else sees it. Where
She doesn't
the
see
sons,
herself for the way other people see her.
no, the Sons of the Harpy was one of the worst storylines for me on the show. I just hated them. But after the last season, I started to think, well, maybe the Sons of the Harpy are like Jon and the Northerners and Tyrion when they're reacting to how she comes into their city and is taking over.
Yep. No, you're exactly right. I mean, I think it's very easy to, I think in the show was trying to show this, and I think the books do, the people who read the books fall for the POV trap, right? And Daenerys's chapters are like from her perspective, and until like we get to Marine and Barristan Selmy is there, we don't really have another Westerosi or another person's perspective of Daenerys's story. So yeah, she thinks she's doing the right thing, and we're not ever seeing the other people coming in being like, hold up, what are you doing? And then when you get to Westeros, we see that, and we see that when she gets to Winterfell, specifically when she gets to Winterfell, when they're like, hey, wait a minute, no. And I think, I mean, I think Jon was kind of using her the whole time, and maybe he liked her a bit.
Okay, you know what? That's another question for everybody, and I got to get back in the chat. I had to go outside of it to look at something, but that's another thing I find myself asking today. Another question I was contemplating a little bit: was Jon playing her the whole time?
I think so. I mean, I've always thought that. I thought that at the end of season 7. I thought, well,
I know you did. I know you really did. And that's why I'm asking, because I know that there are people who do believe that, and I would like to believe that.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay, see, I think, like, you don't think so.
I don't think so. I think Jon, well, I do think Jon is smarter than he gets credit for.
Oh, God, yes.
I do think he's smarter than he gets credit for, but what is shown in his actions are the characteristics that he believes are the ones that he's supposed to show. So he's very much trying to identify with people's perceptions of Ned. Yeah, he's very much trying to identify with the qualities that he thinks are the good ones that people admired Ned for. And I think that he went there to get the dragon glass, and they didn't do a very good job of showing their romance, but I do think that he was enamored with her, and I don't think that he really knew how their dynamic was going to change when they got to Winterfell. I think, well, he wasn't expecting the Aegon bomb, so that shifted their relationship pretty much to me, and that kind of gives the appearance that he was not really there for her from the beginning because now he's pulling away. But I think that's the thing that makes it look like maybe he was playing her the whole time. He didn't really care about her. But I think that ripped apart how he related to her.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't I think that was his excuse for ending things. Like what I'll say is I think he tried to maybe care about her. I don't think he was like heartless in his playing.
Yeah, I don't either. But
I think it was,
I don't think, you know, he loved Ygritte, but he still essentially, he did just, he never told her that he wasn't going to do what she was going to do. But he never expressly was like, "Look, you know, I'm still down for the Night's Watch or whatever."
yeah, exactly. I think that's a great analogy. Like he still
his behavior previous. I mean, you can look at that, I guess, either way.
Yeah, like I mean, and I think the whole like the conversation where we really figure this out is one when him and Sansa are talking, and she's like, "Did you do it for the North or do you love her?" And we don't get the answer. The show doesn't. We never get an answer. And then the next episode, we have a scene with Sansa and Daenerys talking, and Daenerys even says, like, who is manipulating whom?
Right,
and
right.
And it's like, okay, so he did manipulate her to get her dragons. Now Daenerys thinks he did this because he also loves her, and it's like all cute and everything. But I think Jon is like, okay, he maybe thought he could be with her if he had to be with her. He liked her well enough, cares for, you start sleeping with someone, you start caring for them.
Right,
like,
right.
I don't think it was a heartless thing.
That's what I really think too.
But as soon as he had an excuse,
I don't own this stuff all day, but that's one of the things I'm trying to reconcile myself. I'm, still trying to.
But like, yeah, as soon as he's an excuse,
with the way it ended or whatever,
that his parentage was in the way, he used it. He had her dragons. The Night King was coming. She couldn't leave anymore. He's like, oh, can't sleep with you anymore. Sorry, babe. Like, as soon as he could, as soon as he had a reason. So so I think in the books too, if they do meet, if we do get that and it goes, it'll be much like, cause he's stone cold in the books. So he's going to play her so hard. And I mean, that's maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Maybe it'll be different, but I just don't see Book John. Book John's a jerk, man.
Right. He's just different. Yeah. Okay, you guys, it's 9:45 and West Street. Amanda J's coming here. I think Jon started off with good intentions. We cheered for Cersei and Jaime and were sickened by Jon and Dany. It is funny how it is okay for one and not okay for another.
Oh, I'm not sickened by it because you know me. I write Jon and Sansa fics. I mean, he can fuck his aunt. I don't care. Sorry.
I was hoping that they didn't go with the I can't be with you because we're related thing in the show, just because of the time the show is supposed to be portraying, and I just thought that was very unrealistic of them to have him be so disgusted.
I thought they were going to be like, he was going to be like, look, I can't get down with my aunt. Like that's,
well, no, I'm saying the opposite. I thought that they were going to make him be okay with it in the show. Yeah, I was hoping that they were going to make him be okay with it in the show, just because it was an aunt. But I mean, the relation between an aunt and a cousin is still a little bit closer, but I still thought that they would go with that storyline and let him not be like appalled by it. I was hoping that they did anyway.
Right, because in that world too, like in there, I think even within the Starks, there's uncles that married nieces. Right. It wasn't no, and I agree with you. I don't think in the books, and I don't think the aunt nephew thing would be as big a deal. I think the things that might have been bothering John, and I said I'm a little biased, but she was kind of threatening his family low key, like. And then I think the other thing that would have bothered him is that her first reaction when he told her was that, like, oh, you have a better claim than me, and that you, she's also like, you can't tell anyone. She just kind of doesn't even denies, wants him to deny part of himself that he always wanted to know. And
Right.
those are the things that I would think turn him off more than
that took me aback. I was just completely appalled at the fact that she said, don't tell anybody.
Right.
I mean, he's been a bastard forever, and
Right.
Catelyn treated him like crap,
Right.
and everyone treated him like crap. And the one time he finds out all of that was for nothing, then you tell him, don't say anything. So,
Right, Shelly
yeah.
says, sorry. I think this summary is bollocks. I think that pretty much means bullshit in English. It's poor chemistry between the actors. I mean, a lot of people have said that. I don't feel that way myself. Like, I think there was a few people who were miscast, and for the most part, I don't know.
I don't think it was poor chemistry. I mean, I think it was meant, they could have done better. And even in the last episode, I think they did better at showing some feelings between Jon and Daenerys, actually, in her death scene. Maybe he was happy she just died. I don't know.
I don't know.
Done.
I don't know, you guys, but with that, it's getting really close to 10 o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
So next week we have Daenerys 1, chapter 12.
Oh, man. Speak of the devil. Literally.
Breathy girl says she's buzzed up, so we have to forgive her. I know, girl. I've read about it. It's also almost 4 a.m. where you're at. It's only almost 10 here. It's almost 11 where Liz is. What about you, Carllisa? I mean, if you're not comfortable with it, don't say, like, I'm in Louisiana, Liz is in Canada. Like,
Oh, I'm in Georgia.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's 10:50 for me.
I used to live off Peachtree.
Cool. I work that area.
Okay, yeah, it's like, yeah.
This is another long chapter, man. Where was George R. R. Martin's editors in these chapters?
From what they were always cutting them down, and then he was adding more pages. So with that, we'll let everybody go. And Carllisa, thank you so much for being our guest. And you were awesome. And
thank you.
Go ahead and let you tell everybody where they can find you. Your links are in the description for the Imagination Realm, for Facebook, for I think Instagram and Twitter. At least I think. Well, no, I mean I'm sure, but I think I put 4 up there. I think because you had sent me 2 that repeated, so I was trying to make sure. But yeah, there's many links for you in the description. I think one to go on the page, the Imagination Realm. Just a group of us. Well, I'll let you say, Carllisa. Go ahead.
I'll make it pretty easy. So this link has, the link I just put in the chat has, I'm not a mod, so I can't put a link in the chat. But my links in the bio, .com/TIREALM, TIREALM, is all of my contact information. So Facebook, my blog, Instagram, Twitter, the Facebook group, Patreon, YouTube, even though I'm not using it just yet. I think that's it. That sounds like enough. Oh, and a Teespring store. But all of my information is in the mybiolinks.com.
Right. So I've got you where you can definitely get, if you can get to at least 4 or so of the things, you can get to everything. So,
yes.
And thank you so much for being a guest. And Liz, thank you. You want to just say bye? Everybody, bye. I don't know if you're doing the overview next week, but we'll find somebody, or I'll do it myself.
All right.
Take us out.
What? Oh, you want me to take us out? Or
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, should I shout out the chat?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's see if I get everybody in it. There is Nancy T, Living on a Prayer, Jordan B, Tubbs 1971 was in the chat. Imagination Realm, that's you, Carllisa. Let's see, Fandom D Saint, Peter Griffin. I'm scrolling down. Living on a Prayer. I said that already. And
Natural Life.
Oh, which one? Natural Life. Yes.
Septuagint Secrets.
Oh, Septuagint. And The Baratheon Girl.
Yeah.
And I think, is that everybody? Westerosi Ninja.
And Amanda Duncan was with
And Amanda Duncan.
Fandom D Saint was here earlier.
And
Go ahead, Carllisa.
Fandom
Fandom D Saint was here earlier.
Yeah, Phantom D Saint David.
And I think that's everybody.
I think we got everybody.
Alrighty.
And we'll see y'all next week. Everybody have a great weekend.
All right.
Oh, and Nancy T says, thank you, Jen, Liz, Carllisa. Hope everyone gets better soon because we got a bunch of sick crew. So, all right. And with that, everybody have a great, great weekend.
Yep.